She was standing on the pristine marble patio of her colossal, unauthorized, absolutely gorgeous mansion, my mansion, sipping a mimosa. A pool boy was polishing the tile around the Olympic-sized infinity pool she'd just finished, which was situated squarely on my land. I walked past the private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted, sign sheet erected, holding the certified documents that proved I owned every square inch beneath her Tuscan-style villa. I felt the pure, unadulterated thrill of inevitable victory. But before I could even say a word, she spotted me, and her eyes, normally just petty and judgmental, went wide with pure, murderous panic. She dropped her glass, and that's when everything went wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. What would you do if this happened to you? And subscribe to HOA Files. My name is Mark, and I'm what you'd call a land enthusiast. I love real estate, but not the pretty, finished kind. I love the messy, overlooked, legally complicated kind. I make a living finding abandoned, forgotten, or foreclosed properties, untangling the paperwork, and turning a profit. It's boring work hours of courthouse research, title searches, and due diligence, but every now and then, you find a gem. My personal life, ironically, was anything but dramatic. I lived in a quiet suburban town, kept to myself, and really just enjoyed the methodical pursuit of a clean title. I didn't know it at the time, but my next project wasn't just a plot of land. It was a one-way ticket into the kind of drama I usually only saw in the headlines I was trying to avoid. The target was a property in the Grand Estates. One of those ridiculously exclusive old-money developments with iron gates and immaculate landscaping. It was known for its massive lots and even bigger egos. Specifically, I was looking at a plot, lot 14, that, according to tax records, hadn't paid property tax in over 12 years. It was a complete ghost in the system. Just a neglected, overgrown piece of land between two behemoth houses. My research showed the original owner died intestate and had no discernible heirs. The property taxes were astronomically high and no one wanted the headache. The local municipality was desperate to offload it. I spent 6 months meticulously clearing the liens and the title. Finally, I bought the land at auction for a fraction of its market value. It was a slam dunk investment. My plan was simple: survey it, clear the brush, and flip the now clean, ready to build lot for a huge profit. I officially took possession of lot 14, Grand Estates, on a crisp Tuesday morning. I drove my beat-up pickup truck past the fancy gates, which mysteriously opened when I typed in the code listed on the deed's public documents. A small victory. I parked near the overgrown area and got out. Feeling that rush of ownership, that's when I met Veronica. Veronica lived next door. In the house I'd later learn was lot 15. She was the quintessential HOA queen. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and a permanent expression of distaste etched onto her flawless face. She was the kind of woman who considered yard work a moral failing. She came striding across her manicured lawn toward the property line, her jaw set like concrete. "You're trespassing," she announced, her voice a low, privileged purr, but with an underlying steel. I smiled, pulling my certified deed out of my jacket pocket. "I don't think so. I'm Mark, the new owner of lot 14. Just came to take a look around." She didn't even glance at the document. She just squinted at my truck and my work clothes. Lot 14 is not for sale. It's an undevelopable buffer zone. It's been that way for over a decade. The HOA uses it as common space. Well, the city seems to disagree. I just bought it fair and square. The deed is clean. "No," she insisted, planting her hands on her hips. The HOA decided years ago that since the land was neglected, it would be maintained by the community and essentially revert to common land. I, as the head of the Architectural Review Committee, am personally responsible for maintaining the aesthetic. She gestured vaguely at the weeds. I just stared at the weeds. "It looks like a jungle, Veronica. But regardless, it's private property now. My private property. I'll be having it surveyed and cleared next week." Her face flushed crimson. "You can't build here. It blocks the view from my sunroom, and we use that space for our community events." I'm going to build whatever I want, Veronica, provided it meets city code. You might want to update your HOA records, I said, turning my back on her and walking into the brush. I felt a surge of triumph, but deep down, a little warning bell was ringing. She was too angry, too certain. This wasn't just a simple boundary dispute. The first incident was petty, but telling. The next day, I hired a contractor to install a temporary chain-link fence around the perimeter of Lot 14, necessary step for securing the property. I arrived the following morning, and the fence was gone, not taken down, but sawed through in multiple places and pushed over. I called the contractor furious. He just laughed sadly. Oh man, that lady next door? The blonde one? She came out screaming about obstructing views and unauthorized structures. She had her landscapers, her paid landscapers, take down our fence. Said she had the authority from the HOA. I drove straight to the HOA office, an absurdly luxurious building that smelled faintly of expensive leather. I presented my deed and the incident report. The HOA manager, a nervous-looking man named Gary, wrung his hands. Mr. Mark, I apologize. Veronica. She is a strong personality. She runs the architectural committee, and frankly, she frightens a lot of people. She insists that Lot 14 is common ground. It's not. I own it, and she just committed vandalism. If she touches my property again, I'm calling the police. You need to inform her immediately. Gary promised to send a certified letter. I drove back to Lot 14 feeling victorious but wary. I reinstalled the fence myself, this time with a concrete base and a few strategically placed cameras. I thought, okay, Veronica, let's see you try to saw through this. 2 weeks later, I got my answer. I showed up at Lot 14, ready to meet with a home designer to discuss floor plans. I turned the corner onto the street and stopped dead. My jaw literally dropped. The sight before me was impossible. The brush was gone. The land was level. And in the center of Lot 14, in a monumental act of unhinged entitlement, was a massive concrete foundation. Trucks were everywhere. Construction workers were swarming. And the frame of what looked like a sprawling, European-style mansion was already rising from the earth. I pulled over, heart pounding in my chest, a mixture of pure fury and utter astonishment. I walked onto the site, the foreman immediately jogging over, looking annoyed. Hey, you can't be here. Private construction zone. I'm the owner of this property, I yelled, pulling out the deed. Who authorized this? He barely glanced at my papers. Lady Veronica. Lot 15. She said it was part of her property line expansion. She showed us the official HOA approval for the new guest wing over her boundary. We're on a very tight deadline for the pool. He said pool. I walked over to the back half of the lot. Sure enough, a massive excavation, a literal crater, had been dug for an infinity pool that was now being lined with shimmering blue tile. I spun around, looking at the two houses. Veronica's existing mansion, Lot 15, was huge. But this new structure, which spanned almost the entire width of my Lot 14, dwarfed it. It was clearly designed to look like a contiguous single property, extending her domain into mine. It was a massive, illegal land grab. I confronted Veronica right there. She was standing on her original patio, watching the construction with a smug, satisfied smirk. Veronica, you are building a house on my land. A house and a pool. She sipped from a delicate teacup. Oh, Mark, are you still upset about that little patch of weeds? Look, I talked to the HOA attorney. They confirmed that since I was actively developing the land, and you were just letting it sit there, it legally reverts to the adjacent developing property owner. It's an obscure rule, but it holds up. That was a blatant lie. A dangerous, arrogant, spectacular lie. No obscure rule superseded a clean certified deed. But she was relying on the fact that she was rich, powerful, and utterly ruthless. The entire situation was spiraling completely out of my control. She had the construction, the workers, the HOA stamp, and the sheer nerve to back it up. I had a piece of paper and a rapidly emptying bank account for legal fees. I felt completely defeated. This was the point of no return. I drove away in a fog. I had to assume she had bribed Gary, the HOA manager, potentially even someone at the city level, to fast-track her permits. She had leveraged her power and wealth to literally steal my land and build a multi-million-dollar structure on it. It was the boldest, most audacious thing I had ever seen. I needed to slow down. I needed proof. I drove to the city planning and permits office and spoke to a sympathetic clerk. I pulled out my deed and pointed to the Lot 14 coordinates. Does Lot 15 have a building permit for this address? The clerk typed for a moment. No, sir. Lot 15 has permits for a minor addition and a small deck extension. Nothing of this scale, and absolutely nothing on Lot 14. This is a clear case of illegal construction and encroachment, and the HOA approval. The HOA approval doesn't supersede the city zoning code or the legal deed. She should have filed for a boundary adjustment or an easement. She didn't. The clerk printed me copies of the legitimate permits for Lot 15. In a certified document confirming that the construction on Lot 14 was entirely unpermitted. I finally had my ammunition. This wasn't just a boundary dispute anymore. This was a massive, illegal, multi-million-dollar building code violation and a direct infringement on my federally protected property rights. I didn't call the police. I didn't call the city. I went home and spent the next 3 days with my own lawyer, meticulously compiling a legal masterwork. My lawyer, a grizzled veteran of property disputes, kept shaking his head in disbelief. She basically built a castle on your chessboard, thinking you wouldn't notice. The climax came 6 weeks later. The house was now practically finished. They were putting in windows, laying the final marble tiles around the pool. It was a sight, a sprawling, magnificent structure, worth easily $10 million if sold on its own. And it was all sitting on my land. I arrived with my lawyer, process server, and 2 city inspectors, the real city inspectors, not the ones Veronica had likely bribed. I also had a film crew, a local news crew I'd tipped off, giving them a vague, irresistible hint about a massive, ongoing building scandal and the grand estates. I marched up to the front door of the illegal mansion, my lawyer following close behind. The whole operation was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. The news camera was rolling, capturing the pristine facade. Veronica was, as I described at the start, on the patio, enjoying her moment. The moment she saw the cameras, the unfamiliar men in city uniforms, and mean, not just angry, calm, measured, and armed with lawyers, her face went white. You. Get off my property. She screamed, rushing toward me, mimosa glass flying. My lawyer stepped forward, handing a thick stack of papers to the process server, who calmly approached her. Ms. Jenkins, you have been served. This is a restraining order on all further construction. It's an order to vacate the premises, and a lawsuit for property infringement and eminent domain claim. Veronica snatched the papers. Eminent domain. What is this trash? This is my property. I have the HOA approval. I stepped forward, holding the certified deed for Lot 14 right up to her face. The news camera zoomed in. You built this on my land? I own this land. Every square foot. And I'm not selling. Paused, letting the implications sink in. Since you illegally built a permanent structure on my property, you have 2 choices. Either you pay me $12 million for the land, covering my costs, penalties, and a premium for the headache, or I claim the entire structure, including the house and the pool, through adverse possession and quieting of title. Her eyes darted from me to the camera to the city inspectors, who were already issuing stop work orders and red tags on every visible wall. Can't do this. She shrieked, her voice cracking. It's my house. I poured millions into this. The HOA will never allow it. The HOA doesn't own this land, Veronica.
I do.
And the city is confirming that all of this is unpermitted. This house, the pool, everything, it's all considered my property now. The news reporter, sensing the perfect soundbite, rushed up. Ms. Jenkins, is it true you built an unpermitted, multi-million-dollar mansion on your neighbor's land, claiming it was an HOA expansion? Veronica finally, completely, irrevocably lost it. She lunged at the reporter, swinging wildly. Shrieking incoherently about class warfare and aesthetical conformity, two of her landscapers had to restrain her, pulling her back toward her original house. It was a spectacular, very public meltdown. The police, who were there for the city inspectors, had to intervene. The fallout was massive. The news ran the story nationally. The HOA, reeling from the scandal, immediately suspended Veronica. Facing its own lawsuit from me for aiding and abetting the encroachment, Veronica's husband, who had apparently been blissfully unaware of the illegal construction, was forced to step in. After 2 weeks of intense negotiation, they knew they were beaten. The city was threatening demolition, which would cost them millions more. They had no legal footing. They settled. They didn't pay $12 million. They paid $8.5 million to clear my title and buy the portion of Lot 14 that the house now sat on. The settlement also included a hefty sum for the emotional distress and a signed agreement that I could do whatever I wanted with the remaining portion of Lot 14. No HOA interference allowed. I walked away a very wealthy man, having turned a few $100,000 in tax liens into millions, all thanks to one entitled woman's arrogant overreach. The emotional resolution was sweet. I didn't keep the remaining land. I sold it to a nice couple who planned to build a charming, modest home, something deliberately, aggressively not a Tuscan villarite, next to Veronica's now legal, but perpetually shamed mansion. The moral lesson here is simple. Always check your property lines. And never let a bully, no matter how powerful they seem, convince you that they own what's yours. A piece of paper, a clean deed, is worth more than 1,000 empty threats. And I still visit the area sometimes, just to see Veronica's face when she sees the new fence I built, not a chain link one, but a 10-foot tall, bright purple privacy wall separating our lots. Fully permitted, of course. I have a feeling the next fight is going to be about the color of my new wall.